Actually, I was asked what turn I will take in this roundtable, and I said I'd like to be last. I'd like to be last because we can just copy the good things that the previous speakers have made. Anyway, in the interest of time, and also to ensure that I am within pronouncements by the DOE, I will just follow what the Secretary had delivered yesterday. So it will be consistent. And that's how we intend to remark on the presentation. Okay, to the Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities and the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the UP School of Economics, good afternoon. I'm reading. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this roundtable on Philippine energy security and competitiveness. We thank you for always keeping yourself updated on the issues you can contribute to the nation-building efforts to foster inclusive growth. We have been in the Department of Energy for around 8 months, and we are happy to share the work we are doing. The DOE is the government arm overseeing and supervising the local energy sector, with priority in protecting Philippine interests, be it residential, transportation, commercial, agricultural, or industrial sectors. Let me give you an overview of the country's power capacity mix. The country's available capacity is 14,996 megawatts. Meanwhile, the maximum peak demand, which happens during summer, is at 13,272 megawatts. This gives the country very thin reserves at 12%, and that results in yellow and red alerts from time to time. The breakdown of one plant could lead to a power interruption. I'm showing this because, and I'm stating it because of the urgency of what we have to do. Our energy sources, as shown on the screen, are from coal, oil, natural gas, renewable energy such as geothermal, hydropower, wind, biomass, and solar. Please take note that the renewable energy capacity in the mix is already 31.4% and is already catching up with coal's share of 36.5%. This is also higher than natural gas share at 17.2% and diesel at 14.8%. For Luzon, the peak demand is 9,726 megawatts, and the available capacity is at 10,484 megawatts, leaving us with a reserve of only 7.8%. The ideal reserve that we want to reach is 25%. For this year, a total of 1,458 megawatts will be added to the grid as committed projects that will run on coal, nat gas, solar, and biomass. This will give us a little comfort in terms of securing sufficient energy supply, as reserves would only be around 22%. Note that this is only for this year, and we are growing, so that whatever reserves that we have today will deteriorate in the coming years. Visayas, meanwhile, has an available capacity of 2,299 megawatts and peak demand of 1,893 megawatts, giving us 406 megawatts or 21% reserves. A total of 323 megawatts will be added to the grid this year, which will will improve our reserves for the region. Please note that a large portion of renewable energy in this region comes mostly from geothermal and solar energy. For Mindanao, we are happy to note that the region has more than sufficient power with an available capacity of 2,213 megawatts and a demand of 1,653 megawatts, resulting in 33% reserves. For this year, this region will have additional 590 megawatts of power from coal, oil, hydro, and biomass. 1,268 megawatts more will be added to Mindanao by 2018. Thus, the need for the Mindanao-Visayas-Luzon interconnection. We can now say that we have the power to bring in the industries to the region. You note that even though with 33% reserves, we are not considering depressed demand. because as in the nature of the power sector, you have to have supply first before the demand. It's impossible to have demand first. In terms of our future capacity requirements, per our demand-supply outlook for 2016 to 2030, and based on high GDP scenario of 8% and 25% required reserve per year, the country will need additional capacity of 17,338 megawatts by 2030. Past 2021, the Philippines will fall short of the needed 25% reserve requirement, even with the current committed and power projects which are now under construction. We would like to ensure, therefore, that all energy infrastructure projects are in place at the soonest possible time in anticipation of this expected power demand. The Philippines at a glance. Considering the archipelagic nature of the Philippines, composed of more than 7,000 islands, it is a challenge to provide electrification to the whole country. That is why the government came up with the two approaches to address this concern: grid and off-grid electrification. The colored areas, green for Luzon, yellow for Visayas, and blue for Mindanao, are grid connected to the country's transmission system operated by the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. On the other hand, island provinces such as Mindoro, Palawan, Masbate, Catanduanes, Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi are what we call off-grid areas and not connected to the NGCP's network. These islands, which consist of about 5.1% of the country's total households, use modular gensets or decentralized and renewable energy systems such as solar home systems. In terms of operating hours, we also note that only 10% of all off-grid areas run on electricity 24 hours a day, like in Pulilio, Quezon, Boac, Marinduque, and Casiguran, Aurora, while a big portion, about 58%, get power from less than 8 hours, like in Batag, Northern Samar, 6 hours, Hambongan in Bohol, 4 hours, and Lahuy in Camarines Sur, 4 hours. It is therefore the basic goal of the DOE to have electricity in every household in the country to empower the Filipino. Household electrification, as you can see, is still at 89.6%, or 20.36 million out of 22.72 million households. The goal to attain 100% household electrification by 2022 based on 2015 statistics. The DOE is faced with many challenges as shown on the screen. First, with respect to the high cost of electricity. Our electricity prices are still the highest among the power rates in the ASEAN region. As of January 2017, data shows that the Philippines has a higher residential and commercial power rates than Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and even the highly developed Singapore. But please note that the Philippines is charging the true cost of power, as envisioned by EPIRA, while other countries are still subsidizing their power, which make their rates lower. For a fact, we are paying the costs of feed-in tariff and subsidies such as universal charge, missionary, electrification, and taxes, which all in all will cost about 80 centavos per kilowatt hour. Historically, electricity tariffs in major markets in Southeast Asia have been set to meet government social objectives of keeping power prices low. Industrial tariffs are also kept low to support industrialization and employment. For example, Malaysia's electricity tariff is artificially low due to gas price subsidies. In addition, Indonesia's direct subsidies to state-owned power company PLN reached $3.8 billion in 2016. It is also interesting to know that the Philippines has the lowest electricity consumption per capita at 774 per kilowatt hours compared to Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, as shown on the screen. Although the good part of this is that it has also the lowest CO2 per capita. Other challenges are yellow and red alerts and sporadic power interruptions, limited and unreliable transmission system, delayed and unpredictable permitting processes, Note that under normal processes, power projects usually take 5 years and 160 signatures before it can be declared operational and be able to provide power to the grid. We are also experiencing challenges in the ongoing market development in Mindanao due to concerns raised by various stakeholders and consumers on the establishment of the wholesale spot market in the said region. Lastly, there is also the need to address electrification gaps in off-grid areas due to distance and lack of capacity. With all of the challenges we mentioned earlier and the targets we set until 2030, the DOE formulated these action plans to address the concerns of the power industry. The energy sector is open for business. We are continually encouraging investment in the local energy sector to be able to give more choices to consumers. We are also working on our proposal to declare energy projects as projects of national significance. This proposed executive order will achieve the following: expedite the permitting and construction process of power projects to 3 years, industrialization and urbanization via quality, globally competitive electric power, resulting to job creation and better living conditions, ensure adequate and reliable transmission capacity. We are also exploring nuclear energy as a new source of energy in the country. We are also encouraging the setting up of more merchant power plants that primarily trade on the wholesale electricity spot market, which is expected to make electricity prices more affordable. Our second action plan is to firm up available energy capacity that is technology neutral, meaning we will get all available sources of energy until we meet timely peak demand and ensure enough energy reserves. You will note that we do not advocate technologies or fuels and make price forecasts, because certainly we admit that these are unpredictable. Our priority is to have enough baseload power plants, which should account for about 70% of our power mix. Baseload plants are those that operate 24/7 and are usually fueled by coal, geothermal, hydro, nat gas, biomass, and even nuclear. Mid-merit plants, or plants that adjust capacity depending on fluctuations of the demand within the day, is targeted to account for about 20% of the mix. Mid-merit plants are usually fueled by nat gas and hydro. The remaining 10% of the mix will be from peaking plants, or those that run only when there is high demand for electricity, such as diesel, solar, and wind power plants. We were with the Wind Association yesterday, and they were saying that the peak wind happens during the months of October up to March. And we were telling them, why don't you offer the wind during those months? So that's how you will compete. So, thirdly, we are also focusing on the delivery of services to the people by improving reliability, availability, and resiliency of energy infrastructures, especially since the Philippines is a typhoon-prone country. In addition, we are fast-tracking the interconnectivity of the grids, especially Visayas and Mindanao interconnection project, which is expected to be completed by 2020. To summarize, the Philippines is still short of supply. Number 2, the Philippines has an 89 electrification level. Number 3, the country has the highest tariffs in the region. Number 4, Philippine economic growth is at 6.8% in 2016, was the fastest in ASEAN, and we intend to continue. Number 5, there are investment opportunities in the power industry. Therefore, the DOE will focus on the delivery by classifying energy projects as projects of national significance, adopting a technology-neutral approach, encouraging investments in power plants, and it is DOE's responsibility to make all of this happen. Thank you, and we hope that we have given you sufficient background on the country's power industry and DOE's directions. Thank you.